November 1st, Goodhue County Board meeting to order. If you all rise and follow the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're now back in regular session of the county board. Any disclosures of interest?
I do want to disclose that the Wojak property is adjacent to my husband's farm, but I don't believe I have a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Review and approve the previous board meeting minutes.
Move approval.
I'll second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. County board agenda, are there any changes or adjustments?
I would like to pull one item for just discussion on its own, and that is number 6. Approve use of ARPA funds for information security awareness training.
Move approval with item 6 pulled and acted on separately.
Second, aggressive.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and we are to the consent agenda.
Approve items 1 through 5.
I'll second that motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Go ahead, Linda, on item 6.
Item 6, the security awareness training. So at the technology committee meeting, John brought that up, and it was one of the issues that came up is that more and more insurance companies are starting to demand it because employees anyone opening up phishing email seems to be, I think, like 90% of the problems that happens with phishing. And I think the training has been shown to make a difference. So I absolutely support that. The only thing, if we're going to spend that kind of money to be able to have the training, I really would like a consensus that it be mandatory training of all employees and that it be done during work hours as opposed to overtime. As opposed to making it just optional. If I want to take it, I will, and if I don't, I won't.
Okay. Go ahead, Brett.
And that's right up the alley. They were talking about trying to scare us into cybersecurity yesterday at the AMC district meeting, because it is. MCIT is having a really, really hard time getting coverage, finding someone who will back up that coverage. So we do need to make sure that our staff and our systems are secure. And I know John's been working on that, and I asked Scott this morning about having an update as far as that, and it's probably a closed meeting update about cybersecurity, just to make sure we are going to meet thresholds going forward that the insurance companies are going to demand of us. So I wholeheartedly support what Linda's talking about.
Okay, John, do you have any questions, or you don't need any specific direction? And we're just saying that how we're going to word this motion and what we're going to move forward with?
Right. It sounds
Speak
like
in the mic, please. Good morning.
it sounds like Linda's just asking for confirmation that if we purchase this system, that it then be that there's agreement that it would be mandatory for all employees.
As a department head, that's fine. You're good with that, and that's what our
Yes.
expectations are going to be. So, yep.
And probably commissioners too, because we get a lot of emails.
Yes.
Sure.
You would be considered an employee, yes.
I think that's good, but we need to say it.
Do you know, John, if this will have some kind of random phishing emails that go out? So like.
That is an
my
option.
previous employer had that, and if you clicked on one of those, you had to do some extra training because it showed you didn't know what you were doing.
That is an option, and yes, we could configure our training program so that it included that.
Yeah.
Wasn't a simulation one of the things that you talked about in the?
Yes,
Yes.
that's
Yeah, to
correct.
find out whether or not you pass or fail.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're.
Thank you, that's all I want.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion then that we go ahead with the training, and the training is mandatory for employees during work hours.
I would just add that, assuming it does pass, we will be bringing this back to you with a fully defined training program that, for your approval. And I think to Commissioner Anderson's point, that might be a good idea for a closed session, just to review our entire cybersecurity posture and programs. And that would be a big part of it.
Well, and we should do that in conjunction with the county attorney and the finance director, because so we can go through the coverage that we actually have versus what's not covered. And we did, just for the board's information, that there was an option to upgrade to the maximum, and we did select that. It's still a problem if you get hacked though.
I'll second the motion, but then I have one more comment. How does that affect, maybe not the contractors that we work with sporadically, but contractors we work with every day? Is there some kind of piece to this, to that we don't know about, or that we do know about, or?
I think it might, the impact might be the reverse, perhaps, of what you're thinking of, where we might require certain levels of cybersecurity policies on their part before we would do work with them. I don't think I've heard of contractors or vendors requiring we have certain levels of security in place. It's really the opposite, where we would require it of them.
Okay, just certify that they've,
Right.
they're something, okay. And that's fine. I think we need to think outside of just the room we're sitting in. I mean, our HHS people are connected to DHS and everybody at the state, and we're connected that way at Public Works. We're connected that way in all areas with a lot of outside connections. And I know we got to do all our work inside first, but we do need to think about if that becomes the norm going forward. So we're thinking about that too. That's all.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank
Thanks
you.
for bringing that
Thank you.
forward.
All right, HR, flexible spending accounts. Carryover limits. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. So this is brought as a for your information item. Our flexible spending account plan documents are written to account for annual review of the contribution limits as well as the carryovers. And so the federal government has adjusted these amounts for 2023. And so that's what we're bringing forward for you today. So an increase to $3,050 per year of contribution limit. And then for carryover from 2023 into 2024, the limit will be adjusted from $550, I believe, to $610.
Just a for information.
That's a for
approval.
information.
Okay. All right, are you dealing with the chief of deputy appointment, or do we need any specifics?
All right, why don't I go ahead and
Go ahead.
take care of it? The agreement is not ready for ratification. So at this point, what I'm requesting of the board is that the sheriff have the authority to appoint a chief deputy after the election.
Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved, Betcher.
Second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Land use, public hearing for the conservation subdivision.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning. All right, so the first item we have is a conservation subdivision request for a 2-lot preliminary and final plat in Pine Island Township. The request has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with one condition, and this is a public hearing, so we can go into that.
Any questions before we move to public hearing at all?
We'll go into public hearing.
I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of moving to public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in a public hearing. So I'll ask members of the public to step forward to speak. Is there anybody wishing to come forward to speak in a conservation subdivision plat for Merkins? Is there anybody wishing to speak on the conservation subdivision plat? Third and final time, is there anybody in the public wishing to come forward to speak on the conservation subdivision plat?
Move to close public comment.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Back to you. We're back to the board, basically.
I'd move to approve the conservation subdivision plat for Merkins as presented with all the documentation. Second.
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Next.
Yep,
Um,
you're up next.
All right, is a conditional use permit for a self-service storage facility. This is an existing facility in Cannon Falls Township that needs the conditional use permit to facilitate a proposed building expansion. Planning Commission has recommended approval by the county board with 5 conditions.
All those conditions are fine with the applicant and everything, so there's no
Yep.
questions. So. You have any questions amongst the board concerns? or-
All right, I don't have any questions, just a comment. All we are approving is the conditional use. It shows a building addition there. That's not part of this. There is some questions about right-of-ways around there because it's part of the MnDOT plat from when they did the bridge over there, south of there, and they purchased land. So I think there's some things that need to get cleared up around the right-of-way issues. It's kind of strange because this little plat or this little group of buildings sits within the city limits. It's completely surrounded by Cannon Falls City. It's kind of an island in there that at some point, maybe we'll get annexed in, but we have to deal with it the way it is today. So I would have moved to approve the conditional use permit as presented and more to come as they work through the other part, which is totally staff driven, not, it probably won't come back to us. We just are approving the conditional use permit. So I'd move to approve it as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? CUP passes.
And
Another CUP.
the next one is a application to reestablish a former mining site on the Wojcik property in Hay Creek Township by Brooding Rock Products. The Planning Commission heard this item at their October meeting and also has recommended the county board approve the conditional use permit with 11 conditions. I'll just note the township also had to amend their ordinance and have public hearings and approved a conditional use permit at the township level with 29 conditions for this project. So it's recommended that the board approve this permit.
Any questions or concerns, or I'm assuming everybody that spoke at the public hearing or with the township and everything, all concerns were met by everybody and residents.
Was there some delay in some of the neighbors getting notification?
There may have been a delay in the notifications being received by people. We sent them out at the appropriate time, but I can't say when people receive things, of course.
Okay.
You all were forwarded an email with comments if you have questions on those. I mean, there is clarification on the distance and some noise barriers and everything, but
And
Yeah, I can't
those
speak
have
to
been
it.
addressed? The noise and the distance?
staff would say that those are addressed by, the distance, the berming, the blasting only being allowed a certain number of times a year, the Mining Safety Health Administration at the federal level requires you to notify neighbors within a certain distance if you're going to be blasting, when you're blasting, all sorts of things like that.
Just a
Go ahead.
a question, and I've probably asked this question before when we're doing anything within a rock quarry, which has a solid rock floor. We don't address anything that I saw in there about fuel storage on that site. Granted, to get a permit from the state, and MPCA to do this, they're gonna have to make sure that if they're going to have any fuel barrel in there, that it has to be a containment. Because as it states, all the water is gonna stay in there, it's gonna infiltrate. So that's one of my concerns always when we're dealing with mines, because I know they may not refuel trucks, they may not refuel that, but they are refueling the crusher and some of the payloaders and all of those things. So I know it will be covered, but if I don't say it, I feel like I failed. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
So typically, we can figure out which organization does that, but that's either going to be a combination of the state and MNSHA or one or the other, but they both have a longer list of requirements for mining, and our part is the zoning part of it. So we can verify which ones covers that issue.
Yeah, just so that that's covered, because I do get concerned about, somebody running into it, blah, 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 what I'm talking about. With that, I'd move approval of the conditional use permit with 11 conditions from us and 29, so 40 conditions on this conditional use with the language and the documentation that's here.
I will second that motion. And does the township have to oversee their conditions, or do we?
Yes.
So they're in charge of their conditions that they put in place, so.
Right.
And
And
some of them may be characteristic the same as ours too.
Right, most of them had our same language in them, but yeah, they're responsible.
They're
for those.
responsible for theirs, so.
And my understanding is there's no public roads involved until they get to County Road 2.
Right.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. CUP for Martin Amundsen.
All right, this is my last one today. Conditional use permit amendment to allow an existing business to construct a new storage and office building for some proposed expansion of the business in Zumbrota Township. Planning Commission heard this request also in October and has recommended that the county board approve the request to amend the CUP subject to 7 conditions.
Any questions or concerns?
There was some mention brought up about this. It was stated that their business use and agriculture use mixed together inside that building. And
Right.
it was approved the way that it was wrote up, so.
You have a motion to approve?
So moved, Betcher.
I'll second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
County surveyor,
Morning.
good morning.
Morning.
So this is Lake Billsby plat that we've been working on. Brad's been working on for 8 years.
8 years. 8 years.
So the board passed a resolution November 2nd, 2021, based on that special legislation, so we could sell the land that's between the property owners and Lake Billsby, the county land. We had a initiation of the closing 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday at the Stanton Town Hall, and everybody came to sign it. I got the township to sign the next day, and then the other landowners that couldn't be there, we met with them over by Coates and got their signatures. Right now, we're waiting for 2. One person has their, they have their loan satisfied, but the bank hasn't recorded it. The other person, I still need a consent to plat. Otherwise, everything else is ready to go. We're working with Donald in my office to write up the deeds, pass them over to Dave Grove in the attorney's office for his review, and then this should be recorded and transferred. They've paid all their taxes. They've paid the county the money to purchase it. The money went in the county surveyor fund. So we still have a couple bills to pay for this portion of that. But all in all, after things got going, the people that were out there worked really hard. Rick Kirshner was kind of the lead in that group, and he got everybody going, got the title commitments, all that kind of stuff. So really appreciate all the work that they've done on it. The plat's ready to go. So today I'm just asking you to approve the plat. when everything gets recorded, I'll need the chair and the administrator to sign the plat and then all the deeds, and then we can get everything recorded. And we're really trying to get this done before the end of the year. Otherwise, next year's full taxes have to be paid. So we'll work on those last two pieces and hopefully we can get that done. So with that, I recommend the board approve the Lake Billsby West second plat.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion in the second. Any further discussion?
Just a comment that I'll tell you, this has been a monumental task for Public Works, for finance, especially for Lisa, especially for the lawyers. We have had everybody involved to get this done. The path is set. They're doing the survey work for the other plat. Hopefully that will get to us. That will be a little more challenging with the tax implications you talked about if it comes early in the year. This worked out perfectly because everybody paid their last half taxes. We can get it done before the end of the year, before next year's taxes are assessed. So I just have to say staff has been amazing through this whole process, and I thank them a lot for the work they've done.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a motion second. There's no more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's two things
Thank
that
you.
got ticked off the list this year. We got rid of the landfill and we got the first part of this done.
There's more
I'm
coming.
happy.
There's more coming.
More coming, that's right.
Polaris Award.
The Polaris Award. So Leanne? So Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium gives a Polaris Award every year. They give 3 of them out. Ms. Knott has received one of those this year, and she's worked in a shared position with Goodhue County and the city of Red Wing since 2014. She's the 4th person in our office that's received this award, so that says a lot about our GIS department. And just reading real quick, Leanne's been active serving as a local government GIS professional, but also an instrumental and eager participant at the state and regional levels. She has long been engaged in regional coordination efforts and is currently active on the Minnesota Geospatial Advisory Council, GIS LIS Board of Directors, and the Southeast Minnesota GIS Users Group. She definitely utilizes geospatial technology to help government manage their resources and serve their citizens efficiently and effectively. She supports relationships with agency partners and delivers information about the community to residents and visitors in creative and engaging ways. She regularly offers her time and energy to benefit the broader community. She's been active with the consortium since early in her career. She has served multiple board appointments and has actively participated in conference throughout the years, often leading more than one session and serving as a mentor. I want to say congratulations, Leanne. I think she wants to say.
I have a few brief remarks. Thank you, Lisa. So county board members and staff, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. I feel proud to be here and sincerely humbled. And I know that I stand among greatness alongside my fellow and past Polaris Leadership Award winners. But this award isn't just an acknowledgement of my achievements or contributions alone, but one that represents a long history of support and encouragement from county staff and city staff through the years. Delivering GIS services in a shared position between Goodhue County and City of Red Wing would not be possible without staff commitment and resources. I would like to thank the following: Lisa Haney, Alan Lawmeyer, Brian Byholm, and formerly Sarah Schrader with Goodhue County, Sean Blaney, Lynn Nardinger, Patrick Raymaker, and Jay Owens with City of Red Wing, and my husband Dan, who is here today, who started my geospatial journey with the words, "I know someone in the Navy who does GIS. I think it's something you might enjoy." I do want to take a moment to recognize Lisa Haney's special contribution to the success of this shared position between Goodhue County and City of Red Wing. It was Lisa's vision and commitment to the Goodhue County GIS Users Group that created the opportunity for shared resources, not just for City of Red Wing, but for all the smaller cities. Lisa has been a role model for leadership and innovation since my internship project in 2005, and I owe her a special thank you for her support. I look forward to continued agency coordination and creating innovative mapping solutions for staff and the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Lisa. You've had 4 people in your office that have won that award. That's very impressive.
It's a good program.
We have fun.
All right, Public Works. Bridge update.
Morning.
Morning.
Money.
Okay, so we're asking, this is an update to the board, providing additional information on the bridge 25502 out on County Road 2. We talked about this a little bit at the last board meeting. So to go through some of the different options that we've looked at, the first thing we considered is there any way we can do repairs to this bridge? Our consultant came up with 3 different types of repairs. First one would be a pile replacement. He's done this on other projects, but I'm concerned that these piles are in rough shape, and the fact that there's a cattle path sitting next to them, it makes this option quite inefficient or probably impossible to even really do on this bridge. We've done concrete encasements on other bridges where you basically take your pile that's in extremely poor shape and basically build a concrete form around it, and you fill that form full of concrete and use that to supplement the pile itself. So those generally cost more than the pile replacements, and it's difficult to do on projects that are sitting on a super elevation such as this particular bridge. Temporary supports, they have cut holes into bridges before to put temporary supports into them, but he really would not recommend it on this type of a bridge with precast channel substructures. So the cost of doing something like this is going to be more expensive than the other 2 would be. So in summary, there really is not a good option that's a readily feasible solution that can be designed and implemented quickly and cost effectively to try to repair this structure. The other option we had looked at would be to open the bridge until it snows and then closing it for the snow events, because we don't have the type of equipment that we can use to plow snow on a closed bridge like this. This would require changing the signage on the detour route every time you're going to go from one condition to the other condition. And the other concern we have with this is it could just be very, very confusing for the public. They drove over the bridge one day, it snowed, and then it's closed the next day. We're particularly concerned this could be a problem for emergency responders if they thought the bridge was open and then it was closed. So actually make their detour longer than it was. So we're not recommending we go with that option. The other option that we did spend some time looking at is reopening it with 2-way traffic, sharing the south lane of the bridge with the stop and take turns. A few issues to think about here. The bridge engineer's concerns. The gentleman that gave us the load posting on this bridge, he has some concerns with this bridge. He says he's comfortable with the load posting for the south side of the bridge, assuming the bridge monitoring program is implemented with the load posting. Without monitoring, he's not comfortable with the load posting being there. And he also points out that this load posting is based on the condition here we're talking about, which would be a stop and take turn condition. So the vehicles stop, and so heavy vehicles going across this bridge are going to be going across at a slow rate instead of coming in and hitting that 55, 60, whatever miles per hour. His recommendations, he says, talk about doing an extra bridge monitoring program. We would work with him to find out exactly when he has his largest concerns. We'll probably be doing more inspections at the very beginning as this thing is put into a place. And his other concern is in the spring, when we start getting snow melt, potentially high waters. He definitely wants to have it inspected more often at that time. There are additional concerns, and this is one part about having a bridge open that's posted, particularly one that we know is in bad shape like this. The concern is if somebody were to take an illegal vehicle over this bridge well above the posted rates, and particularly if there was nobody coming from the other way and they just blow through this thing at whatever speed. If something like that were to happen, could cause a failure of the bridge, a partial failure of the bridge. And even if we had gone out and monitored this thing on a Tuesday morning and they went out on Tuesday evening with something they shouldn't have, and Wednesday morning, somebody else comes along who's legally loaded, could cause a failure. And there's no way you can stop that from happening unless the bridge is closed, or you've got somebody out there that's weighing every vehicle before it goes over, which is just not a practical solution to do. This is the biggest concern we've got here. We don't know what somebody is going to do in the wee hours or when somebody's not out there watching them. The other issue we talked about is if we're going to go with this option, we need to have some snow removal. We contacted all the small excavating companies, the people that we know that do snow removal for townships, and just have small operations with pickups that are smaller and way less than what our trucks are. We only had one responder back from that, and that was from Pfluger Contracting. If we take an option or an average on the number of times we've plowed County Road 2 over the last 3 years, and multiply it by the rate that Pfluger gave us, it comes in a little over $25,000 to have them come out and plow that bridge. And again, this number, if we don't get much snow, will be much lower. If it snows on Armageddon, it's going to cost a whole lot more than this. The other issue is traffic control. We did put together a traffic control plan. We sent it out for a couple of consultants. We got 2 replies back from them. It's going to cost us a minimum of, assuming it's going to be closed for 8 months, it's going to cost us a minimum of $20,000 for this additional traffic control. The other issue with traffic control is when we put together the plan to send it out to the consultants, I also send it down to District 6 to see if they have any concerns using this on a long-term basis, because this type of traffic control is supposed to be used more for short-term, intermediate type of situations. And I did not hear back from the district before this meeting, so I'm not sure if they have any concerns with it or not. So what it really comes down to, if the board is comfortable with these extra costs, the extra cost of snow removal could be $20,000, $30,000, we don't know. Traffic control could be somewhere around $20,000, $25,000. The other thing we don't know is exactly at what point are we going to lift this traffic control situation. Now we can go through, we talked to 2 consultants about doing the design on this. We're going to go with Stonebrook, who can do a design in a 6-month period of time. They told us if they want us to try to do an expeditious design on it, it could potentially cost us an extra $10,000 if, as they do, what they do is they do a preliminary design, you wait from the state to hear back, then you incorporate those changes. If they're going to try to do it faster, you do a preliminary design, you assume everything is good and you start on your final design, which means if the state comes back with something, you might have to go back and change your design. It costs an extra potentially $10,000. We don't know, but they could, if we want to take that risk, could shave off some time, additional risk, maybe another $10,000 in cost to do it. The other issue is monitoring. As the engineer recommended here, we're going to need to spend a lot of staff time out there taking a look at this bridge to make sure nothing is changing on it, to make sure there isn't any concrete falling off it, make sure there isn't anything happening to the piles that are out there. And so every morning I send a technician out there. This is the morning he's not working on getting ready to deliver next year's construction program. So it's another cost. It doesn't cost any additional money. It just costs staff time to get it done. The biggest thing we don't know, we don't know what we don't know, is what type of a bridge this is going to be. We're hoping this is going to be a beam bridge, such as the one that we just put up on Highway County Road 57. That was probably the quickest I've ever seen a bridge go up since I've been involved with building bridges. So if we're going to go with a beam design, we always, and the other unknown that we don't know today is by the time it gets designed, by the time we bid this thing out to a contractor, he gets a request in to a manufacturer for these beams, how many beam projects are going to be sitting in front of him? Is this something that he could have done in a short period of time? Or does he have 5 other bridge projects in front of him and it's going to be another delay of who knows how long? So those are the issues that are in front of you. If you're comfortable with taking the risk of somebody potential driving over it, if you're comfortable with these extra costs, if you're comfortable with the risk that even if we try to expedite this thing, we still don't know exactly when it's going to get built based on supply and demand in this day and age.
Greg, what's the, when you put the 20, 40, 40 load rating, what does that mean?
That means for a small truck, a single axle truck, you can go up to 24 tons. The larger vehicles, a larger truck that has a wider space between the front and the back wheels, that's the middle number. And then the last 40 is the weight for a semi to go over that structure.
It's 40,000 pounds, not 40 ton.
Yeah, no, these are 40 ton.
Okay.
No, it's 80.
40 ton is 80,000 pounds, which is what a fully loaded semi is rated for.
Right.
Okay. So just to clarify now, your trucks, your plow trucks are rated at 56, 58, 60,000 pounds?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. But
18,000 pound front, 40,000 pound
Yeah.
rear, so they're probably not over 60,000 pound weight rating, which is 30 ton.
Mm-hmm.
They are tandem axle, so where do they fit? So this would lead into the question marks of what, when we're going into plowing and traffic aspects, so how do they fit into it?
I believe they're the middle number, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay, well, that would lead into the next question, is if they're in the middle number, then
Mhm.
plowing's not an issue then. Okay, because they would fall under that.
Well, the issue is that they're wider than 12 feet with their plows on the front of them. And when they're loaded up fully in the winter, some of these vehicles probably are overloaded for this load.
You're not following your own road restriction weights.
Yeah.
So we can figure that out as we go. I
Mhm.
guess that would be
Mhm.
clarifying, and that would be some aspect that, yes, if the plow is 12 foot wide, then we may need to examine that, and maybe we need to have the road. We'll transition to that with more
Mhm.
questions. So my district, my aspect, individuals there, we have the, Greg has said he's fine with opening based on the inspection stuff. I would like to see this road, the bridge opened up to, single lane, take turn traffic. So the other stuff we can work out, but I guess for ease of figuring this out, we should either get motion from the board or consensus, say that's the direction we want to go or how we're going to go so that we can deal with the snow removal and
I have a
the,
couple questions.
the snow removal and traffic signage as we go. Otherwise, that's all moot. There's no reason discussion if we're not going to open it. So.
Right.
Go
Could,
ahead.
could you put in, I don't know, like a speed bump or some kind of a grid that would slow vehicles down and increase the likelihood they wouldn't be traveling across that bridge at high speed?
You could. That makes it difficult to plow around some kind of a bump like that.
Okay, so that was one question. And then I think we had also asked about if any kind of a bypass was possible.
In the short term, the cost of a bypass is first off, you're gonna have to get some kind of a structure for the bypass, some sort of a temporary bridge in there for the bypass. And you're gonna have to go out there, talk to landowners, you're gonna have to acquire land from them. You get permission to put it outside of the county right away. Then you get, like say, we're gonna have to find a structure someplace, get that designed out, and then we're gonna have to move a lot of material in order to build it. In this particular case, if you look on either side of it, you're gonna have to build up, you're gonna have to come up with quite a bit of material to get this thing at grade for somebody able to use it.
So
as a
the
bypass.
cost
The cost of
would
that
be
is gonna-
prohibitive.
is prohibitive. And the other issue, this weather is fine, you can still pull it off unless it turns really cold and everything freezes up solid. And again, and the other issue too is this is on a DNR Trout Street. We have to work to get a permit from the DNR. Those have never been quick.
If we can approve it for single lane traffic, we don't need a bypass.
Right, I understand that. I thought it might be safer, that's all.
Mhm,
And that was the question.
mhm. Yep.
Yes, my recommendation is if we have questions, ask them. If we get consensus to move forward with it, of what the board's concerned, so we can deal with the other issues. But like I said, my recommendation would be for the citizens in that area and the residents is to open it up for single lane traffic. The weight rating will allow for school bus.
I haven't had a chance to find out what school buses weigh. So I can't answer that question. I know a lot of school districts can work around, send a smaller vehicle out on something like that. I have no idea if the school district could.
From a weight rating standpoint, you can't get, I believe with a single axle like that, it's probably not any more than 16,000 pounds and an 8,000 pound front. So typically they're not going to be over 30,000 pounds. What the allowable license weight for your average school bus. So even if it was fully loaded, which is probably not, that's why I'm questioning what the 20, 40, 24, 40, 40, what the specific rating is, because that might identify what we're allowed and what we're able for these other aspects. But again, they're all moot points. If we don't have consensus, again, I would like to see it open up to single lane traffic. We can deal with the other aspects, but I would like consensus from the board if we're going to move that direction, so we can give Greg direction on the plowing and the signage aspects.
But one part of that is though, is if we could actually plow it ourselves yet, if we're not over that weight limit, that takes 25,000 out of this equation.
That's one way or the other, it's going to have to get plowed.
Yep.
I would hope that if you're a tax-paying resident over there, that the board's not going to say, well, we're not going to open your road up. You're going to have to travel 20 miles around to go across the road because of $25,000 the board doesn't want to spend for plowing or traffic. So I would hope that's not I think those items we can find ways of working the other ones out, but.
Is it actually, by not opening it up to the plow, is that going to actually change that plow's route also? Is there going to be a lot of redundancy from, you just go up to there and now you got to come back and go all the way around and come back and turn around again?
Yes.
Maybe it'd be easier for the plows if we put it at 13 feet just for the snow plow. Can they sneak through there?
We got to verify that we obviously don't know on the weight rating.
Weight.
I can distinguish that. So I think it's doable in every manner, but we need to get, again, consensus that we're going to go that direction to figure the fine points out. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I have a lot more questions, but because I think you just want to open it, and I understand that it is in your district. If it was in my district, I would want to know the answers to a lot of questions. If we open it and we go out there and do inspections, tell me what you got to see to close it. I think the problem is we don't know what we're going to see. Where is that trigger to say, okay, it's changed enough, we got to close it. It's got 10 pilings under it. 4 of those pilings hold nothing, virtually nothing, which means all that weight's transferred to the center 2 pilings. And then it's cantilevering on those because that other side isn't being held up by the pilings on that side. To complicate that, we're going to put Jersey berries right down the center of it, right on top of those center pilings that are going to weigh about 7 tons.
No, you're not.
Yes, you are.
How are you
You're going to
gonna
put cement Jersey berries down the center of that bridge. That's how you're going to make it single lane. I don't know how you think you're going to make it single lane, but that's what
the bridge. Why would you put extra weight in the middle of the bridge?
Because that's how you block off
As
half the
opposed to
road.
the ends?
Ask a county engineer. What are you going to put down the middle of the road?
Jersey berries. Right
Jersey
down the middle of
berries.
the
That's
road.
exactly what you're going to do. The bridge right now is at 26/40/40. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, we're going to put 7 ton on there and then say we can still go over with 24,000 ton or 24 ton truck, which is over 26 tons when you put those two together. So I'm not an engineer. I'm just stating what my concerns are and the risk that there is to the county if something happens to that bridge. That's my concern. And The other thing I guess I want to point out is even if we open it to single lane stop and stop traffic, we still have to put up traffic marking that says you can't go over it if you are this. So we're still going to put up some traffic control back that's going to cost us X amount of dollars, even if we open it up. It's not like that goes away. We still have to spend that. So there's a lot of, to me, there's a lot more questions in there than simply, yeah, we should open it up. So that's my concern.
I understand your concerns, but I mean, I don't know why you'd place barriers as opposed to on the buttresses on the ends. Doesn't make any sense why you'd put them in the middle if you're gonna have to clear snow around them. Not an engineer, but that just common sense would say you don't have, put the weight in the middle of the bridge if it's gonna be an issue. And the traffic signage is up no matter what we have to do. But again, all questions, other commissioners, we have to get to a point of what direction, if the engineer is looking at it saying that we can open it up to single lane traffic. And you said if it was in your district, you'd probably, your residents would want to go over it.
Well,
The engineer is looking at it, they're an engineer, and those pilings were no different when this bridge got shut than it was 3 months prior. Was it different 6 months prior? Was it different a year ago?
yeah, it was different a year ago because I was under that bridge a year ago and they didn't look like they do today.
What did they look
So
like?
if they did not look at all like they did, they're not deteriorated the way they are today because we were under it a year ago. So I'm telling you, those were my concerns.
Yep.
If they're not your concerns, that's one thing. I just want to correct one thing. The Public Works Director said, if the board wants to take the risk, he didn't say, I wholeheartedly say we should open it 100 with one lane. He did not say that. And I think he specifically said that because the decision is ours.
Right.
And he said, if you want to take the risk. So I just want that clear.
But the recommendations here says go with option D, isn't it?
If you're comfortable with the risk.
Based on what a structural engineer told us that was,
Yeah.
we could do. Residents in that district pay to have a road and a bridge that they can travel. So and if an engineer says you can do it, same as an engineer did Diane's bridge from the get-go. So, go ahead, Linda.
So seriously, within 1 year, pilings can just fall apart so that your bridge can fail within 1 year?
Well, these pilings have been deteriorating slowly for the last 60 years. Every year they're exposed to the elements, they're going to deteriorate further than they were the year before. That happens with any piece of metal that's sitting out there and is not being protected by some kind of a paint or some kind of a protective coating on it. And those piles are looking worse. Looks worse than the last time I was underneath that bridge too. And it's some of them, it's not just the top of them, it's where those cattle passes are sitting along the side of them. Those piles are starting to deteriorate because of the water trap between the pile and the wood that holds up these cattle passes, which was not part of the original design for this bridge in the first place. And we have no record of who allowed that cattle pass to go in there or if the county gave you any permission for it. We have no record of it. That bridge was not designed for it. And those are the piling that are starting to really be of concern because they're constantly exposed to wet wood and wood transfers moisture through it. It's going to continue to rot those piles. And there is corrosive waters. You know, you put sand salt on those bridges when in the wintertime to keep the snow and the ice off of them. And those bridges, until we put the last overlay on it a couple of years ago, there was nothing protecting that water from not getting all the way through the bridge and getting to the top of those piles. And they're still corroding with time.
All right, my other question is, this is on County Road 2. Is there any chance that some of the mining trucks are going to go along County Road 2 and go across the bridge?
Of course. But that's, the commissioner, that can be from
Quarter of a mile up the road where they're gonna enter County Road 2.
And that's an increase of, didn't they say 25 to 40
Mhm.
trips a day or something like
Average
that?
25, I think.
If
When the
you're,
mine's open, it's not.
Yeah, when the mine's open.
Yeah.
Right.
Even for the spring, we don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They would be more apt to be under the control too of the rate restrictions if they're gonna have all spring and summer.
And is replacing that bridge now the number one priority?
It is.
It was scheduled for 24. It's
Right.
not like we didn't know it was,
Right.
it was getting bad. It was scheduled for 24,
Right.
along with the one on 45, which is scheduled for 23. Or is that 24 too? No, they're both, one's 23,
I
one's
think they were
20.
both, I think they were both in the 24.
Are they?
Yeah. And we are working with MnDOT trying to find out, is there money available if we move this thing forward that actually has federal money designated for it in 24? If we do it in 23, we're looking for money, we're looking for money from the state to do it in 23. And they're working with us, try to get it done.
Scott's got a comment.
Go ahead, Scott.
One of the bus companies is online and has provided information to staff. Their buses for that bus company, the gross weight rating is 29,800 pounds and the bus is 17,000 empty. So my math says that's 48,800 pounds their buses are. And
No.
I believe that's the Goodhue bus company.
You're reading that wrong. The gross weighting is the maximum weight rating that bus can have registered for, which is 29,800. Loaded with people, they're saying the bus empty weighs 17,000. So,
Bus empty is 17,000.
right, so that's saying with kids and everything, it can't weigh over 30,000 pounds.
Okay, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just reading what I got here.
Well, I deal with it every day. It's a fit. So that's why I asked you the tonnage and the weight rating on it. So that would be a 15-ton capacity that would fall under for a bus. So more questions? Do we have a consensus of what direction we want to go? Or
That's too bad. I don't like either option.
I agree.
And we're gonna have expense with either option. We're gonna have to put our signage up regardless. And we're gonna have to turn if we do close it, there's gonna be a lot of extra miles on our plow trucks.
To me, the real
Stopping
question
and
is,
turning around.
how dangerous is it for people to go over that bridge? Would you want your kid to be going over that bridge every day on the school bus? I don't know. That's really the question, I think.
that's why we left it up to the engineer for.
That's,
Right, but it's sort of like we're getting two messages. So
it's, we still don't know who's gonna drive what over it and when. That's what we don't know.
And we use that comment, and yet you can use that to every situation you approach with down the, when you walk out of here, you don't know how you're gonna approach those steps. You don't know what you don't know
Right.
about wandering into the elevator. So you don't know who's following you down the road. You don't know who the oncoming traffic is.
Or if
You
they've
don't
been
know what we
drinking,
don't.
whatever.
Right. Right.
Just one other question. Would it be possible to put any kind of camera on there where you're just seeing what went over it?
If you see a truck go over it, you have no idea what he's got in or how far
I
he's
see, so
loaded
it
or
doesn't
what
really
he's
answer
carrying.
the question.
Right. Doesn't really answer your question. And even so, then you just know that a truck went over it.
I know, but you could see if there were 50 trucks a day that went over it, or if,
Right. But if there's 50 trucks a day and they're all meeting this load posting, that's not a concern.
Right. The engineer looked at it and said it was fine if your 100 trucks go a day, if we meet the weight requirement. And based on the weight rating that they have, I'm not sure if we're reading it or understanding it correctly. If we're being assessed, that's equivalent to what the bridge was, well, less than what it was rated for, but a fully loaded semi is allowed to traverse the road based on the engineers. So I get that we can get broad concerns about the bridge, falling over, but again, that's situations we can be brought with everything in life. And if an engineer says it's legit with inspections, again, I do believe we owe it to the residents in that area. And I'd be hard pressed to believe that this bridge is any different than what it was 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So, but I didn't look at it, but again,
I
I'd like
look
to
at
feel.
as
Go ahead.
long as there's a stop situation, like you say, the one that breaks the rules and it's the next person, but as long as you're the next person and you're in a stop situation, it could be horrible if that bridge goes under, but it'd be a lot worse if it goes bad at 55 miles an hour. So I'm comfortable with it as long as we stop at each.
Stop, take turns.
And let's look at those Jersey barriers. Can we put the barriers on the end and can we do markings out on the bridge and not add that extra weight of the Jersey barrier in that
Cable.
lane. You know, because as long as they know it's a single lane and, you know, we put the markers in the middle and, I mean, is that a way can we look at that?
The standard way to shut down a road is to put Jersey barriers and keep them off the side you want to keep them off of.
Okay.
And that was, I asked him, when he came up with this load rating, that's the assumption he's using.
So do we have either a motion or consensus that we're content with opening it to single lane, stop, take turns? Or
Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it. Further discussion?
One more question.
Go ahead.
Steve, can you weigh in on a legal opinion?
What's the opinion you're asking for?
Oh, well, the liability of opening it up to one lane of traffic when, at least on the engineering possibility that the engineering report that it does say that, yeah, it can be done. We can do it.
It's impossible to give an opinion based on that, but obviously the engineer's opinion on this is insulation for the county and does mitigate that risk quite a bit. As long as we follow the engineer's recommendations to the T, including all the conditions that Mr. Isaacson had mentioned, that obviously reduces the exposure for the county. But the risk is there, as Mr. Isaacson has indicated,
Yeah,
and there's no way of avoiding that piece of it.
right. And there's no way to say that people aren't going to do what they aren't supposed to do because we know they all do anyway. All right.
Greg, you did talk to MCIT, right?
Excuse me?
Did you talk to MCIT?
I have not talked to
Okay.
MCIT.
Any further discussion?
I'm just going to state, I'm not going to support it because I'm not comfortable with it. I just have too many questions about how we're going to know when something happens on that bridge that we need to close it. Is it a chunk of concrete falling off? Is it the next more deflection in those center two piers? What is it that's going to say enough's enough and then we close it? And quite frankly, I don't think the engineers told us that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's told us exactly what we're going to see.
By monitoring, if we see that anything changes out there, if we see that there's a new crack or that there's if the crack, an existing crack that's in that pier cap is larger than it was before. You see a piece of concrete laying on the ground that comes from that pier cap, or those piling, they're starting to actually shift more than they were before. Those are the only keys that we can look for.
Well, my hope is that we have enough measurements and enough documentation that we can actually go out there and do that. And I understand the residents, but I also understand the risk. And I have it's probably why I woke up at 3 o'clock and went back and read this report again, is because I have heartburn about making decisions that may or may not put the public at risk. And a little bit of heartburn over having to do a detour because something is not, we can't say, and the engineer won't tell us, it is safe to do this. He said you can, but he won't put any name on there that says this bridge is safe to do that. He's just said, this is what engineering I think you can do. And that's where I draw the line. I just can't step over that line and not err on the side of safety when it comes to the public. Every time you hear a bridge go down, nobody expected it to go down, and it goes down. And this is one of those that I've seen enough change in that bridge in a year. I just have a hard time with it. I can't do it. So I'm going to vote no to open the bridge. And it's nothing about the residents. I understand that. I understand the detour is County Road 3 to 58 or County Road 5 to 58. I understand that, and that is a significant detour. You know, quite frankly, we need to expedite getting the bridge construction documents out there. We need to expedite getting it built. That's where I'd go. I would probably err on the side of let's not open it. Let's see if we can get somebody in there to tear the bridge out this winter. So that part's out of the way. And then we're that much faster next time when we got to put it in. I mean, that's another option to get ahead of the curve by doing some of the work this winter, because the bridge is coming out one way or another. So I just can't do it. I just can't. I think you have a motion and a second.
Motion is second, discussion, and I can understand Brad's point, but that's why we have the engineers who designed these bridges from the get-go. We have an engineer that did this. We owe it to the resident. They said we can leave it open, and again, you still got to look at this from the aspect that people were traveling over this bridge last year, this year, years before, that known it was an issue, days before it even shut, and nothing's changed. So the engineer says we can, they engineer them, they build them. It's our recommendation. We can work through the other points. We owe it to the residents. If it was that big a concern about weight and stuff, we can lower the weight rating even more to be an issue, but I think we owe it to the residents to keep it open, and you can put a sign of travel at your own risk if you want. But they know the bridge is closed. They know it's been closed for a reason, a single lane traffic. They know it's got a weight rating for a reason. No, I think we can open it. We owe it to the residents.
I agree with Linda that neither option is good, but I guess I have to say that I'm not an expert on bridges, and so I have to rely on the report that this engineer gave. So I would be a reluctant supporter of opening the bridge.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. So I think we're hard to deal with the other aspects of the snow removal until you can clarify the weight rating in the truck and what we're able to, if we're able to pass with our trucks. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, we can look into that.
Okay. The signage, maybe I'm wrong, or my assessment is the signs are going to stay that the bridge is limited weight restrictions that we're going to have on each end of that bridge.
Mhm.
And stop and take turns is basically moving the barricades, and you're putting a road closed, normal big road closed signs, and it says right on there, single lane traffic, stop and take turns,
Yep.
right? So
There's a standard for that.
what am I missing out on the cost of this $20,000 proposed signage? What's the problem? Where does that come in?
The detour itself
Okay,
goes all the way, well, back on 3, up to 58, down 5, and then back to 2 again.
Yeah.
And there's a boatload of signs that go up all the
Yeah.
way along that. So we're gonna hire a sign company that comes in and has that many signs, and we're gonna
Okay.
have them responsible to maintain those signs to make sure that they stay up. And that comes out to
gotcha.
$2,500 a month for having to have them
We
do.
currently in Goodhue County do not have those signs
Not
and the ability to
that many.
maintain.
No, we don't. This is a major detour route. I don't even know a lot of signs. We don't have that many signs.
And even if it's posted to what the maximum weight, if it was, let's say it is an 80,000 pound, we still have to have a detour open if it's a single lane.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I got you.
Yeah.
So every consensus as a board, we can, the signage is what it is, but in order to verify the snow removal aspect, we need more information. Just because I'm saying is if our truck, if we're able to run a 40,000, an 80,000 pound truck, if our engineer says our truck is legal or allowed to travel across that, I'm not sure how it would make sense to make sure that our plows cannot cross that. Even if we have to make the width 13 feet wide so that they can
If you make it,
easily travel that.
if you make it too wide, the issue is they want to put those Jersey barriers down the middle of the bridge.
Yep.
They don't want to get it off on the south side.
I got you, but
On the
we're
north
also talking about $25,000 of taxpayer money
Mhm.
in a lot of cluster for our employees and everybody else through the situation that we're not making it too wide. We're making, if the truck is legit, legal, weight-wise to travel across it.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
work with this
I
scenario. to
beg to
make it-
differ. I mean, I understand that a through call route means you go all the way down, maybe you go all the way to 61, turn around, come all the way back. But a truck that turns around at the bridge and goes back, they're gonna plow down and they're gonna plow back.
Mhm.
They're not plowing when they're doing it. It just means they can't go straight through. Somebody comes from the other way to plow
Right.
the other side of it. It's not a
It's not the end of the world.
It's not a dead end, like you're not gonna be doing something when you turn around and go back. You're gonna be plowing when you go back. That's not, I'm not so
I
concerned.
think we all understand it, but the fact is you're gonna have to change a plow route. We still, based on the assessments that you've got, whether we use that or not, you're still looking at possible $25,000 to pay another individual to come out just to drop their plow to drive across the 40-foot bridge. So if we can avoid that, that would be the objective without having to rearrange a plow route and everything else for the individuals to maintain the service that residents of Goodhue County expect and pay for. So you can get us an updated weight rating and options of what that translates to, and if we're able to, before we make a decision on the snow aspect.
Yeah, we'll see
You
what.
can just update us. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not gonna,
Yeah.
if you can't do it, you can't do it. So then we're gonna end up with the $25,000 cost.
Right.
Well, I would like that to come back
Greg-
before the board.
Greg can bring that back, but I mean, Jess just texted me, the 24 tons is for tandems. He says our trucks can't cross, so, but Greg can bring that back later.
Okay.
Or the report.
The other question I brought up here is, do we want to ask the designer to expedite this design, potentially shave some time off it? But there's risk that they're going to have to repeat some work. It could cost $10,000 more. It could cost nothing more.
Yes, I would say that we do.
I agree.
And you have brought up before about this goes to the state. What is the reasoning that the state has to oversee the bridge design and this gets bogged down per se months up at the state? And no construction on the bridge takes place over the winter?
Every bridge that goes on a public road in the
Yep.
state of Minnesota is approved by MnDOT's bridge office.
So right now, the design individual hasn't made a design, or he has a design that they
No.
utilize?
We're just starting a
Starting,
design.
okay.
Right.
Well, when we get to that point, if we get the information too, where it begins and ends at the state, I guess the difference is if there's any aspect of anything taking place construction-wise over winter, which I'm guessing they probably don't, but we can utilize the people that we know to come up to the state too, to get, again, we've had this discussion before, but how many bridges throughout the state, I get that they're doing every bridge, but how many of them are closed? There's
Yeah.
people we can call and we know that we need to push to get it closed, there should be a reason it can take precedence over a bridge in a neighboring county that is slated to be done, but
It's not
State-
closed, it's
Yeah.
open. You just opened it to one-lane traffic.
today,
But I understand where you're going, Jason, but you also have to understand, this is most likely covered by state bridge funds, or it might be even federal bridge funds.
Right.
So if do you want the taxpayers to pay $800,000 to build a bridge themselves? Or do you want part of it to come from state bridge funds or federal funds? That's, the 25,000 is peanuts compared to the 800,000 the bridge costs. So, look at the bridge, the list of bridges we got, 5-year plan. This one was number 2 and 24. The other one's on 45. Do we want to try to get 2 contracts going and do both of them the same time? With the contractor being what, 2 miles apart?
Actually,
Not even.
we got 2 different subjects going here. First subject is every bridge that's going on a public road is going to be approved by the state bridge engineer. Now, state aid, the folks that work with us to get us our money, it has to go through the state aid bridge engineer before it goes to the state engineer. And Dave will, when those guys know that if somebody's got a closed road, they're gonna hustle it and they're gonna get it through as fast as they can. Plain and simple.
That's what we're assuming and hoping, like I said, if we have to
Right.
make sure they do that.
Right. And I don't know if you're going to call a legislator and tell them to bark down somebody's throat, if that's really going to help anything or not. But the other issue about trying to do the two of them, we actually talked to two different consulting firms about doing the design on this one. We're going with Stonebrook on this because they can get it done in a shorter period of time. The other firm, Erickson Engineering, that we do have designed well over 90%, 95% of the bridges in our county. They're a little bit more expensive. We're going to talk to them to start working on the design for the other bridge, 25502. So theoretically, if everything works out well, we can get this bridge designed, built, get the contractor out there, go through the process to let out the other bridge. So timing wise on it, if everything goes well, contractor that's out there could put a bridge bid on that one, and if everything goes well, he can go from one bridge to the next. But we're getting both of them designed with the intent of getting both of them built as soon as we can.
There was a question about if MCIT has weighed in on this, and is that something that should happen?
I was just referring it from a liability standpoint.
Right, that's what I wondered if.
Well, I think we've already made the decision, so.
Yeah, but if they sort of said they weren't going to cover it, we might want to rethink it.
Yeah, I don't think it's that they wouldn't cover it, it's just how liable we are if there was some malfunction.
I see.
Okay, any other questions for Gregory?
The only other thing, and you and I talked about this the other day, is that when it gets open, in your report, it talks about 2-month inspections. And you and I talked about doing much more inspection right away when it opens.
Right.
And especially right away next spring when it starts to thaw up and we got more water going under that bridge and when things are shifting because of frost coming out and all of that. We need, now that it's gonna be open and I accept that decision, don't agree with it, but I accept it. We have to be vigilant about the inspections because we miss something, and that's not.
I would certainly concur with that and suggest that we.
And it costs some money.
It does.
It's staff time to do it. I totally know that, but I think it's just important that we are really vigilant about that part.
Let's not forget it costs money to close the bridge too.
Yes.
Might not directly come out of the county's coffers, but when you
I
gotta travel 20
understand that,
miles
Jason,
around
and
just to
not-
dump a load of grain,
Mhm.
it costs you money.
But if we're gonna do it, then we need to be very
We-
diligent about
Yeah.
overseeing it and noticing any changes.
Changes.
If it's fallen apart that much in 1 year, then Brad saw it a year ago and it wasn't that bad, and now it is, well, then it can happen quite fast. So I would concur it needs to be diligent.
In typical bridge construction, nothing takes place over the winter, assuming you're gonna do that.
Yeah, no, we've built bridges in the winter before. If we had the thing totally designed, we had a contractor on board, we'd be ripping it out right now.
They built 2 of them on the Cannon Valley, 3 of them, 4 of them on the Cannon Valley Trail in the winter.
We just shut down the Cannon Valley Trail again to build bridges.
They're gonna build bridge now.
All right, so move on to for your information. It is for your information. Okay. Committee reports, we'll move on to, we gotta get started. Unless someone has
We
something.
got people waiting in the hallway, quite a few people.
So,
Just
You
one
know-
thing, sorry. Cannon Valley Trail, there is the annual report in your mailboxes over there. The Cannon Valley Trail did very well last year, not quite as good as the year before, but better than all the years previous. So the annual report is over in your mailbox.
new and old business, and we'll move to, we have to do the county claims.
So move, Chris.
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. So, take it.